Gents, I just want to pause the episode for a moment to let you know about the Strong Men of Value Academy. You will have heard me refer to it a number of times, and I want to bring more attention to it. So this isn't just a program, it's a life-changing environment and community of men who are focused on personal and professional growth. We're looking at areas of relationships, wealth, and health, things to help you thrive and maximize your life. Imagine having bi-monthly one-on-one coaching sessions with myself, weekly group coaching calls, and an incredible brotherhood of high achievers by your side. Now we're diving into resilience, leadership, and holistic growth to not just succeed in your career, but to thrive in your health and your relationships. Your journey to greatness, it starts here. So join the movement and you can apply for the Strong Men of Value Academy. You can head to themanthatcanproject.com to find out more.
You're listening to The Man That Can Project with Lockie Stewart, a global movement created to empower men and open up what's really going through their minds by having real and raw conversations about life's unique challenges and our individual ways of processing it all. Welcome to The Man That Can Project.
Okay, team, welcome back to another episode. Today we got Matty Summers returning. He did an awesome podcast with us back in Men's Health Week, which is really good. And I know we're going to do a number of episodes, but today we've got some exciting things to talk about. But Matty's, first and foremost, a husband, father. Mate, I've been loving the Instagrams as well. It's been awesome to see you and your son, but also a business owner. And I really, from obviously the outside looking in, I'm sure like everyone, you've had your hurdles and challenges, but you look like a really well balanced. We live a really well balanced life, and that's what I love talking to and sort of modeling a few things off you, and a few things we're just chatting about behind the scenes, and as well, a few things that I hope we dive into today, based off where this conversation goes. Is obviously every journey is different, and it doesn't have to excel at school and uni. I think that's a really important thing, because a lot of us think we're made or broken by that age. I fucking remember going through and what's it called? QCS or whatever it was
terrible.
Fucking stressed me out, and I never used it again. But even life is what you consume. I've never heard that. Life is what, like, maybe in different contexts, but that is a very brilliant context. But also being present with your children, that's something that I think you do really well. But I'll pass it over to you, Matty. Reintroduce yourself to the lads and ladettes, everyone who's listening, a bit about the backstory, and we'll see where it goes. And we are drinking, what are we?
Cold brew, but
some delicious cold brew. Matty always brings a jar of it over every time we come.
Some water, otherwise it would have been on the juice.
Lit us on fire.
Brief story about me. Late 30s, husband, father, and business owner. I like the order of that as well. So rather than putting business owner first, because without the other stuff, the other part falls apart anyway.
Spot on, isn't it?
But yeah, look, I had a standard Aussie background, come from, lower middle class family. As my parents' age, I think they moved up the food chain, so to speak. But went to state schools, had nothing special as a kid. We had everything we needed. All the basics were always met, but we didn't have an abundance of money, that's for sure. But yeah, I went to state schools, enjoyed high school to a point, enjoyed the things I liked, and I think that's continued through life.
Yep.
Didn't excel in the things I disliked. But after that, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I left school, so I got a job in a factory where Dad was working, putting together metal that went to Virgin Megastores in the States, and I was shit at it and I hated it, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I did that. That progressed to different roles within that company. Eventually ran my own section in my mid-20s, and then moved along into sales roles and ran sales teams in late 20s, and then took a step back to the role that I'm in now, or the company I'm in now. I probably took a left turn, a U-turn, went backwards, a U-bolt, went backwards, or perceived to go backwards by lots of people anyway, so it was a risk.
What do you mean by that? Like, perceived to go?
Well, I guess I was a sales manager at a company, so I got paid X amount and whatnot, and I didn't enjoy it. I didn't want to be there. So one of my customers, which is now the company I'm part owner of, offered me a role with his company, and he was only 9 months old. So It was a small business. To go there, I had to take a pay cut. 20% or something. But I was had the options of bonuses attached to my income, so which I'd never had. Always had bonuses, but not to the degree of what was on offer. So it was really up to me to take that risk. And a lot of people in my circle like, don't do that. So, it's a risk, But the wife supported me in it, so that probably made me do it. But that's 11 years ago, and then that's taken me on the roller coaster to, eventually he got out. I bought into the business with two other guys, and we've invested in other things since then. So without that risk, I'd be living the standard life of doing a 9 to 5, working for somebody. I guarantee that.
How do you reckon that would go down for you?
Well, I think the rest of your life turns to shit if you don't like that other part of it. You're not going to like everything, right? But if you don't, if that you don't want to be there, then that just flows on to the rest of your life straight away. So
100%. So obviously, like your journey is different to most people's, and that didn't start. What was that 25, where you sort of how old were you when 11 years ago? So
the business, one of the businesses we got to 11 years old. Yeah, so I was 26 or something like that. Yep. Yeah, and
most of us, you're supposed to have it figured out by 20. Don't you know that?
It's complete bullshit. Right? The whole system is bullshit, and we come through school thinking if we don't get this right by the time we're 17 or 18, then the rest of our life's going to turn to shit. And that comes across in media and schooling systems, and they all have their place, but it's not set up for everybody.
I agree. Everything has its place, but like we were touching on just before, it's like if you don't know what you want to do, going to university or a trade, you're freaking out. You're like, fuck, what's wrong with me? I'm fucked, essentially. But then you realize as you go through life, there's always things that you can figure out, and you can't. In my opinion, you can learn some things about business. I've never studied business at school. At tertiary education or university, but I would imagine I'm probably learning more actually having a business than I probably would have learning about business.
Yep.
Maybe.
Look, I've employed people that have got a business degree, and to be frank, they knew jack shit, because you're not involved in it day to day. I've never gone back to uni or TAFE. I've thought about it to have something on a piece of paper, but each year goes on, it's less likely I'm ever going to go back because I don't think I require it now.
Yep.
There's a good thing I listened to the other day, a podcast on Joe Rogan's, and the guy was talking about, like, why are people going to uni and spending $100 grand or whatever they're spending, $200 grand in the States, when you've got YouTube? Like, just YouTube.
I think I listened to that same episode. Yeah. I think you sent it to me.
Yeah, Peter Schiff, I think his name was. But yeah, just YouTube it. And I mean, that's what we've done through reading books, through podcasts, through YouTube videos. And live practice. Like,
it's so interesting that, hey, because I'm oh fucking hell, my phone's playing. There you go. I was gonna Google some stuff we're talking about, but anyway, it's really interesting. Like, obviously, some industries you need that ticket, you need that piece of paper. Like, obviously, you'd want your doctor to know that they've haven't just watched YouTube and played that
Simpsons episode.
Like you want that, but there's a lot of things as well, like where learned experience is.
Yep.
Super important, and it's not always necessary to, I see it in this day and age, and probably in the field that I'm in, but also then, people are like, you should study psychiatry or psychology. I'm like, nah, I can see where it would add value, but I'll leave that to those people. I'd rather, I read a fuckload, I listen to YouTube, I coach a lot and do all that sort of stuff, and I feel like I learn a lot like that. But I do small micro courses on university stuff, which I think is helpful, and I think that's what a lot of us underappreciate and undervalue is we think we need to have a certain certificate. We need that business degree to be able to run a business. It's like, no fucking way, because it won't prepare you for what's coming.
And majority of people don't. A lot of the success stories in the States and all around the world, they don't have anything. And Richard Branson's dyslexic, so he's a prime example, and there's plenty of them out there. So.
I also think it's like people who, and this is just my observation, is that when you go to university, you're still being spoon-fed, right? Yep. You're being told what to do. You're told what time you have to go to lectures. And you might have some student assistants when you go in there. So it's not really life, like the real world. It's still this semi-sheltered environment, as opposed to someone who's fucking hungry, who's working a full-time job, but they're hustling on the side to learn certain things, or they're in a startup business or whatever they're doing, but they're making it all happen because they're hungry to succeed in what they want. And that's like, for me, if I was to employ someone, I'd be like, I want that person as opposed to the guy who's done 4 years of psychology. Although that would be handy, but if he's a lazy bastard, I don't want that in my company.
Yeah, and like you said, you need it for if you want to be a financial, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, it has its place.
Doctor, obviously you want your surgeon to be have a ticket. So, but yeah, I personally, I think in general business and general life, unless you're in those other areas, life experience. When I worked in the factory, I didn't enjoy it, but it also gave me a concept of what it's like working in a factory, what the disconnect's like from factory to office, to sales, etc. So then when you move up the food chain, you get a concept of no matter how good it can be, the factory still hates the office. It doesn't matter. Every business I've been into, those guys don't do that. They don't do that. So
it's interesting, like you talk about moving up the food chain and then having the lived experience of being here. So you can obviously understand what you were thinking at that point in time and sort of the lens you were viewing it through and how much you may have hated certain things or loved certain things. And to me, and I've been talking about this a lot the last week, like we need to really start sharing, and this is what the men's circles really do, is you get to understand what people are thinking in everyday life. But if we could understand that in the business, but people have too much, whether it's ego or pride or whatever it is, that they don't want to share what they're experiencing, even if you are at the top or wherever you are.
Perceived to be at the top, right?
Yeah, it's like, well, if you could understand what your workers, like let's say, the people in the shed, what they're experiencing, what they're thinking and how they're going on, you can sort of, learn to build an environment that supports them to thrive. And if they knew what you were going through, they might have more buy into the vision of the business and stuff. But I think a lot of that, from what I've experienced, is it's missing. Like we generally don't want to share those certain things with people at certain rungs in the business.
Most businesses don't want to share data. They don't want to say what sales are at or can't. But we've been the complete opposite, especially in the last 6 months with the COVID drama. We've been completely upfront and honest, and when we don't know what's going to happen in the next 3 months, we've said that we've got no idea what's going to happen, rather than putting on some blanket to pretend. And when sales have been good, we've told them. When sales have been bad, have been good, and then we've given them reasons why we haven't done this or why we haven't done that, and then they get buy-in, they get understanding. But if you just go and make calls and just filter it down on an email, they're just sticking the finger up at you because they've got no background to that decision. But it's also come back to the factory stuff. I think it comes back from doing shit jobs. Like, people want to just roll in and sit in their fluffy desk or whatever, wherever they want to be. They just want to get straight up the top. But my parents always, I remember from 13, I had to do a paper run. I remember I got $13 for 420 papers or something.
Fucking hell, mate.
It was every Thursday. Had to fold them. I think I folded them for the first week, and I was like, this is shit. And so Mum, instead of Mum making me do it, she saw that I'm not going to do everything, so she had to help. So she got home early from work, and she folded the papers, and then I delivered them. So it was still shit. But she realised I wasn't going to do the whole thing at 13. So I delivered them. I got $13, and then eventually towards the end of the year, I got onto my mate. I was like, mate, come help me deliver them. I'll give you $5. So I gave him $5.
Mate, you're an entrepreneur.
And I made $8. And I think my delivery time went from like 3 hours to 45 minutes.
Oh, mate, yeah.
And we used to come back like hurrying my mother up, like, come on, you got to fold them. We got to go. Like, we got to reload.
You're being too slow.
Yeah, and she was like, fucking shut up.
You fold them.
You can imagine the words. But and then from there I did school jobs, Maccas, all that sort of stuff. And and even now when we employ people, we look for that background as well in people, because
I think that it's such a powerful thing, because I've done a lot of the shit jobs as well, purely because and I think there's a lot of people now that feel, like you said, they want to walk into their fluffy desk and they don't want to do the work. And obviously as a business owner, I don't want to employ those people. Whether they're fucking brilliant or not, you still need to.
It builds resilience, right? And
exactly.
It's all life lessons without you knowing. Like as a 13-year-old, I didn't know what lesson I'm getting.
Yeah.
Mum and Dad gave me the lesson. I used to work at Macca's, and they used to give me because I was bigger, as I was 6 foot as a teenager.
Yeah.
I'd get the 5 a.m. shift on a Saturday for 2 hours, which was unloading the truck.
I remember you telling me.
And they were throwing stuff at me as a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
But Mum and Dad would have to get up on a Saturday morning and drop me off. Now I realise, as I've got a child, that's pretty shitty, because you've worked all week.
Yeah.
Maybe have a couple of beers or whatever you want to do, but they couldn't do that. But again, it was a lesson of, get up at 4:15. I had to get up and drive and whatever. But yeah, these lessons you're getting hopefully from parents or mentors or family or whatever, you don't realise you're getting them until you get older.
And this is probably leads into that life is what you consume, which I think is going to be a fun thing to talk about. But, you know, getting those lessons, none of us are better than we think. Like, you know, for you and myself, like, life's pretty good, but shit can always go wrong. And it doesn't, like, right now, I definitely know you're a humble person and you don't think you're better than anyone. Which I think, you know, people allow success to go to their head, or they allow setbacks to fucking hold them back, rather than just having this sort of neutral opinion that, you know, regardless of what happens, I'm still an individual and I'll treat people a certain way, and I won't, you know, whether you fail or succeed, I won't allow that to define who I am as an individual. But, you know, rolling onto that, there's people who feel they're better than working at Macca's, or they're, you know, they can't do this, that, and the other. And I think I've shared this with you multiple times. One thing that I'm grateful for is I did do it, even up until the Man That Can project started. I was fucking driving Uber and fucking labouring and doing all these what people would perceive as shit jobs, and I there wasn't much career progression, or it wasn't going to give me the life that I wanted, but I was doing it anyway because at that point in time I fucking needed to survive. But most people are like, I'll stress myself out because I'm better than that, so I'm not going to work there. I'm waiting for the perfect job. But sometimes it's just like, just get in, fucking roll your sleeves up and get on with it.
Well, I remember we bought our second house, interest rates went up to like 7%, which people say, oh, you know, back in my day it was 17, but the data's come out to say that 7 or 8% is equivalent of an 18, 17% because of the percentage of your income to your house loan has grown. But so I had to go I worked full-time, wife worked full-time, and I went and got a job at Bottle Shop on a Friday and Saturday night. So I'd finish work 6 till midnight, Friday, Saturday night. I think I was on $19 an hour or something. And I lost half it in tax because it was my second job, but it was $120 more than what we had prior to the Bottle Shop. So I think I did it for 12 months, 18 months, got over the hump, and then, you know, dumped that and moved on, you know, focused on other areas. But it was a temporary situation that I had to do. So.
And that speaking of temporary situations, like even through COVID, right, there's people who are thriving and there's people who are struggling, and that's probably always happening in life, or it definitely is. But it's, you know, that mindset that you have, you committed to the extra job because you needed it at that point in time, even though it sacrificed probably lifestyle and a few other things. And, you know, there's people who are stressed out right now because, you know, they might have lost their job, or they don't know what's next for them. It's hard to get a job for some people. And rather than going, righto, well, that's the reality of it. What can I do to, you know, it might be meaning fucking it's time for me to learn a new skill and make myself valuable in another way. Or I might have to, you know, there's so much we can do now thanks to these bloody mobile phones and technology that there's no reason why we should be sitting there with our hands on sitting on our hands going, life's hard and it's shit. Like, that's always going to be the case, but we need to start, you know, doing your perfect example of that. Sometimes you just got to
make your own bed, right? You know, it's up to you. And back to the consumption of what you consume, same thing. Like, shit's going wrong, consume an hour a day of a positive podcast and shit will change pretty quickly in regards to how you think. And we were living on the south side. We decided to move to the north side. I did that. I joined Function Well, the gym you're at, and I've been for half a dozen years. And that changed my mindset in regards to opening myself up in regards to podcasts, books, all that sort of stuff. It wasn't a great financial decision to sell the house and move the other side. Didn't work financially very well, but I would have been in a different position if I'm still sitting in that other house. So,
what do you reckon that would look like for you right now?
Again, I'd be back to the standard old 9 to 5. You know, and there's nothing wrong where we lived, but I would still be in the same house. I'd still have the same mentality. I'd be more negative than positive and all those sorts of things. But I don't, both my wife and have said we don't regret the decision, even though it might have cost us some money. Because it changed our direction.
Hope this doesn't make, for those listening at home, I'm just setting up the camera to get a little video of Matty talking, because he won't know when it's happening unless he starts going all weird. No, I'm kidding.
I better put my clothes back on.
Sorry, strap on up. But it's exactly that, right? Like you took that risk, and a lot of people are fearful of taking that risk because, or for whatever reason, you know, and you have a family, you have businesses, so it's a big choice, right?
And life is a risk. Like a relationship's a risk. Getting married's a risk. Investing in business or whatever you're doing, everything has a risk attached to it. I mean, driving across a bridge has a risk.
Fair play.
You know, that's life. Hopping on a plane, But if you don't take any form of risk, then, and there's nothing wrong with doing the basic 9 to 5 and doing that role. If that's
That's
you're
what works
comfortable
for
with
you.
it. But if you're doing it when you hate it and you're not wanting to take any risk or divert, take a left instead of a right,
Yeah.
then I've got no sympathy, to be honest. 'Cause
Yeah, well,
you're making your own bed.
Yeah, you're making that choice. It's exactly that. Like if you're loving the whatever lifestyle you've got mapped out for yourself, fucking awesome. But there's unfortunately statistics show that most people aren't. So you can either grit your teeth and grind through it, and whinge your way through it, or you can fucking look to make some changes around that. And no one can force you to do that. As you were saying before this, what was it? When you're 25, you can't. Well, what were we saying?
Oh yeah, podcast Rogan had a neuroscientist on there. I can't remember his name, but yeah, it blew my mind, some of the stuff in there. But one of it was, as a kid, obviously your brain's so easy to influence, and that's your job as a parent. It's what you're doing without you realizing it. You're creating pathways in your kid's brain from what you do and how you react and how, because it's all learned behavior. So you're creating the bridges, and he basically said it's a bit like a road map that's got no roads on it. You're creating those roads.
Yeah.
And it's pretty scary when you're a parent.
Pressure's on, mate.
The right way. But then he said after 25, you can't change anyone's opinion. They have to change their own opinion. And when you first hear it, you think it's a bit of, it doesn't make sense. But then you think about it and it totally makes sense. Because I've had numerous convos, maybe arguments with people trying to change their mind about I believe this, you believe that.
Yep.
But totally makes sense, because I was the same when my wife said to me, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to eat like this, drink this, do that. And we both do it to each other.
Yep.
And I push back. But then 3 years later, I come round, she's like, I told you that 3 years ago. But that's exactly it. I've had to come to the conclusion myself.
Yep.
And you can see it in life, right? You try and push people in relationships, work, friends, family, whatever. But then it makes sense.
Let them
find the path.
And it's a cool thing, I think, even knowing that, and if you then put it on yourself, like the fact that you're the only one who can change your opinion means that if there's some opinions you have that aren't, or beliefs that aren't adding value to your life, you can't wait for someone to come and change it for you. It's not fucking possible.
No.
You have to, work out how that's going to change for you, or what routines and rituals you need to put in place to get that work done.
And in a cesspit of negativity, then, or if you're consuming standard media, Facebook, Insta, if that's your life, then, and a lot of people are starting to realise, but all those systems are collating data from you to put in front of you what you want to see, right? So they're making your feed to exactly what you want to see. So you start consuming the same thing 99% of the time, which concretes your current beliefs, which doesn't open you up.
Well, because anything that you want to fucking believe, or any argument, you can find something to support that now.
Yep.
And that's what is causing a lot of people to argue, because they're like, no, this said this, but it's like you got to once check the source and the credibility of what you've read.
Yep.
But also always be open to, because I have beliefs, you have beliefs, everyone listening here has beliefs, but I also know that I'm fully open to my beliefs being changed, because I've had beliefs in the past which I thought were the fucking duck's nuts.
Yep.
And now I'm like, I can't believe I believe that. What a fucking bellend.
And and you're going to change your beliefs over time, right? Too, like, your political beliefs will change over time. So, as mine have. But that comes through life experiences. But you need to be open to that change as well. So. But podcasts have been really good for me in regards to consuming information, going to podcasts that I normally wouldn't go to consume stuff, or even difference of opinion.
Yeah.
I may still come out with my own opinion. That's the same as what it was.
Yep.
But I've still listened to the other side of it.
That's the thing, right? There's no wasted time, essentially. Obviously, you can be more effective and efficient with your time, but if you're still learning and understanding people's opinions, and it either one changes your belief or it validates your belief, that's two outcomes that are beneficial.
Yep.
But like for yourself, you've got a business, you've got a family, and you've got your health, yourself is what I wanted to say, that you want to look after.
Yep.
How do you still find the time to consume the right stuff? Because it's very easy. People go, you've probably said this, I've definitely said, I don't have time.
Yep. And I say it all the time. It's complete bullshit. You've watched 3 hours of Netflix for 7 nights a week, so there's 21 hours, right? So I don't have time to do X, Y, Z. So it's, and you've taught blocking time and all that sort of stuff. That's all really important. But the start of it, you got to look at where your time's going. Right, it's a bit like a food diary. Write down your time diary, even
Yep.
almost, and write down where all your time's going. And our habit used to be, in old life, was come home, bang some food in, turn the TV on. That was the standard
Yep.
American Australian scenario, right? So and then we'd consume 3 to 4 hours of TV a night. That was just normal.
Yeah.
Whereas now it very rarely goes on. And we're even looking to get the new TV. It's got a picture frame around it, so it doesn't even look like a TV. And
Really?
it can have a painting on it when it's not a TV. So it doesn't become the focus point of the lounge room.
That's fancy,
Yeah,
that.
Samsung's
I've never
got 'em out now.
Yeah, fucking hell.
Yeah.
Soon they'll do the cleaning for you.
Yeah, soon. But yeah, we would deal, even with the young fella, we didn't
Yeah.
want it to be the focus of the lounge room.
Yeah.
Like it's about talking to each other. That's what the lounge room
Yeah.
was back in the day, right? Before the TV appeared. Just having a cup of tea and having
Yeah,
a chat. Whereas now
actually-
it's just either people sitting on their phone and watching TV and not listening to each other. So,
Yeah.
So we hardly ever turn it on, but that's our decision. So then sometimes I'll consume. If it gets turned on, we generally know what we want to watch,
Yep.
or we put a podcast through,
Yeah.
Chromecast or whatever, and
Yep.
do it that way. But that's a simple way to change what you consume rather
Yep.
than watching the news every night, which is complete BS anyway.
Well, yeah, I think people fall into that habit. They have a hard day's work and then they'll get home and have a beer and watch some TV and then
Programming, right?
yeah, do it again. But it's like when you think about it, and it's those 8 areas that I talk about, we fucking nail the work. Like everyone goes to work, and all of us are really focused on the money because we need to survive. Like that's what a lot of people pin their self-worth to, is how much money they earn. Or what role they hold. But we get home, we go, done that job. Fucking, I deserve a rest. Rather than going, well, hold up, there's 7 other areas of my life that I need to also be putting some time into.
Yep.
Have I spoken to the missus or your partner? Have the kids, right? Have you checked in on your lifestyle, your finances, your mental health, like all these things that we just go, no, the job's done. Fucking game on. That's why so many people get to a certain age or a certain moment in life and they're like, is this all there is? I'm fucking busting my ass and everything else sucks.
And I see most of the people, through work and life in general, the ones that are complaining are the ones that say they don't have the time. So they haven't changed the circumstances. And it's a really hard thing to change. I remember the wife's like, let's have a TV night, free night per week. I was like, what? Can't be Friday and Saturday because footy's on. And then it can't be like this night because this on. I watch
Lucky
this.
the Broncos suck now.
Yeah. So, but that took me ages to come around. Whereas now, I'm like, she turns on, I'm like, what are you watching?
Yeah.
So, but that, people think it's just going to, be a 6-week journey or some shit.
Yep.
But for me, I've changed a lot in the last half a dozen years, but it's a long-term process. And I think it's a never ending. People think I've learnt that now, I'm sweet, I don't have to learn anymore. That's when you get stale and bored, and that's when all your other 8 areas start to suffer, right?
Well, people come out of school or university or even their apprenticeship and they're like, the learning's done. That will serve me for the rest of my life.
Yep.
Are you fucking kidding?
I use about 5% of it, right? And it's the same thing doing a uni degree, and that's the problem with uni now, is you do a 4-year degree, you come out, half it can be irrelevant by the time you
out. 100%.
So, and business is the same with internet and all that sort of stuff.
And that's what, like for me, and rather than making it a task today, or a commitment that every day you have to, well, obviously it is going to be that, but like where you look at it as like, fuck, it's another chore. It's just, for me, I've made it as a part of the standard of who I want to be as an individual. And a part of that is every day I'm, 10 pages or 30 minutes of reading or learning, whether that's through podcasts at the bare minimum. Because that's how I want to hold myself as a person and as a man, rather than going, fuck, every day I've got to find 10 pages to read. I'm just like, cool, I'm excited because that's how I operate. Just like why I brush my teeth, I exercise. It's not always fucking enjoyable.
No.
I read a lot of dud books, which, I don't finish because I don't like it, which is fine.
And that's, you need to do it, because I used to think I have to finish this book.
Yeah.
But if I get a chapter and shit, I'm pissed off. I've dropped $25 on it.
Yeah.
But don't waste your time reading something if it's shit. Move on.
Change it. Exactly. Nobody knows what you want or need better than you. So don't just read a book because someone said to read it. Like I've got fucking few books there, and I haven't read all of them because I started some. But granted, I might come back 2 years later and go, it's the time for me to read that now.
In differently.
Yeah,
because you're different from where you were. So
correct.
Yep.
But we get stuck on that. But for those who are, you're the perfect example, right? You got the business, family, all that sort of stuff, and there's no excuses. You've taken full ownership, and I think a lot of people I know from the coaching side of things, I'm not going to work with anyone who I know is still blaming everything else. I'm just like, well, I can give you a perspective of where you're at, but if you're not willing to put that shit to the side and go, right, I'm ready to take ownership, I'm not working with you.
Yep.
Fuck that. I can't, like you said, I can't change your opinion. I can't change your actions.
No, and even when you learn that from 25 on, then that completely changes your perspective. It even changed my employees and stuff. I can help them and guide them. I can push them in the direction, but if they don't want to, you can lead them to water. You can't make them drink. And it's so true. And the other thing with time and your life in general, I mean, you have different stages of life too. And my work life is different in parts of the year because we have a peak season. Or when I first came into this business, I was doing 14-hour days and working Saturdays.
Yep.
But that gave me the opportunity to be asked to buy into the business. So
yeah.
If I didn't do that, would I do that now? I'd struggle with it because my life's different.
Yep.
And my goals are different. I was driven by money back then.
Yep.
I'm driven by money to support us.
Yep.
But I'm not driven by money to be the long-term
yep.
goal. So that's changed. That's changed in 10 years, and that's
yep.
going to happen. But be aware that it could change.
I think as well I know you're not hung up on going, fuck, why am I not as driven to work 14-hour days like I'm not, rather than just going, oh, I'm at a new phase in my life. Because I'm the same. Like I used to work fucking ridiculous hours, whereas now I'm not. I've not a chance I'm going to do that. It may change and go differently in the future, but for this point, I'm like, I don't see the return of me growing the business that quickly that
yep.
it's worth sacrificing aspects of my life.
Yep.
But obviously, for everyone listening, we're all at different stages of that journey, and and you're the only one who can decide what that looks like for you and what you're prepared to sacrifice and how much time you're prepared to invest in certain things. But yeah,
it's only through learning that I've realised that money, items, cars, houses, whatever, they're not my main priority. I mean, yeah, you want X, Y, Z to be safe, but it's only through podcasts and learning and docos and all that sort of stuff that I've changed my behaviour.
Yep.
Because I was programmed from advertising, what you believe is successful as you come through as a kid. Like I remember getting my first pair of Nikes. They were the cheapest ones available. I think I was 11 or something. Had like a pink tick, but I didn't care because they were the Nikes.
Swag.
Yeah, and they were a piece of shit. But it was that perception. You go to school, I've got Nikes on.
Yeah.
That mentality comes through, but it's only through consumption that you can change.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I think, no one can make you read. No one can force you to listen to a podcast. And you might, and I heard it all the time, read, you get smarter. And it never really sunk in till, for me, the moment, I read my first book, but then I was fortunate to go away with a couple of people who had 7-figure businesses, and just to see what they spoke about, like the topic of conversation was generally a whole heap different, but then how they got there, they weren't superstars. No. They just did these small things that I'd heard you could probably benefit from, like what you said, podcasts, looking after your health, reading books, all these sorts of things. And I was like, maybe there is merit in doing those things that don't seem.
I think you put up a post the other day about life is simple, like you make it as complex, and it's so learning and all that stuff. It's the same story, or life in general, and we complicate everything completely. Yeah. Where if you do the basic each day, it's like building a business, right? Everyone sees this business that was $1 million and it grew to 10 million in 6 months. Like they're like 0.00%. We're 11 years old and it's grown and it's evolved over time, but it's just trying to do the basics each day.
Yep.
You're never going to be perfect. You're going to make errors and mistakes. And same as investing in business, I've made errors. It's cost money, but I've learned from it.
Yep.
And then you just keep chipping away. But everyone expects, again, the instant gratification and the instant money and the, all 100%. That sort of stuff.
So for you, like juggling all that sort of stuff, why do you prioritize family first, and how do you sort of make sure that you don't get tip
over?
Yeah.
It's probably just from watching and learning. I mean, I've been involved with people, even a lot of our customers, they're high performers, and that's where they want to be. But just from watching and learning in a 20-minute visit, their life is chaos because they're working X amount, they're flying out here, they're doing this, they got to go away for a week, and I just don't want I don't want to miss out on stuff. Like I don't want to give up time with, say, family and him and his development for the sake of another 10 grand a year or
Yeah.
20 grand a year, whatever, because we hear all the time, you know, when you're on your deathbed, you don't regret the hours you spent in the office, but it's totally true. You regret the other shit, more so.
We just got, yeah, that we've all heard that, and you see those, you've probably seen on Facebook or fucking YouTube, the clips of actually people on
Legit
their deathbed.
people, yep.
And that's what they say, and, you know, when you're watching it, you might go, oh, fuck, yeah, but then you go back to everyday life and just forget about it. But it's like everything that all the wisdom, whether you're listening to people on podcasts or having conversations with people who have, you know, succeeded a bit more in different areas than you go, fuck, that makes so much sense. And then when you start doing it, you go, I fucking get it. I get why they did that. So that when you hear the old people or people on their deathbed, you're like, I fucking believe you, because I guarantee when I get to that point, nothing else is going to matter apart from...
Yeah, and it's like flying somewhere. Everyone, business is so good, but fly economy and you can still travel and you still don't have to work as much.
Yeah.
You know, like I remember as a kid, Mum and Dad worked really hard. I don't think Mum worked full time until I was in high school from memory, but we had a caravan holiday every year, but it was for 2 weeks. It was at the beach. It was the best time as a kid.
Yeah.
I don't remember not staying in a hotel. Like, I don't remember any of that shit. So, you know, but we get caught up on perceived,
especially with
success
fucking social media now. You want to get that business class shot.
Yeah. So
I still want it.
I mean, I've done it with points.
Yeah.
I've never paid money for it, but I've got friends who've said, "Oh, I'm not going to fly unless I can fly to business." It's like, hang on a minute, champion. Like, you're going overseas. Like, have gratitude for what you're actually getting rather than what you're missing out on. But
100%.
Very quickly, you get caught up in the spin cycle. But yeah, it's I don't want to give up that time, because I know that time's not going to come back. And even next year, I'm looking to have like every fourth Friday off as a starting point. So then, you know, because he's heading towards 2, a couple more years before you know it, he's at school, and all that time gets taken away.
Yeah,
so
you don't get that back.
No,
ever.
No, it's and there's a lot of hard work to return back.
Yeah.
In 20 years' time, he grows up thinking, Dad didn't give me time. It's not that simple to return and say, let's work on this now, buddy. Like, my father never had his dad watch him play soccer until he was in his early 20s. And I didn't know that until the other month.
Yep.
But then I can realise how then Dad prioritised time to coach me as a kid with my teams.
Yep.
But I can now understand why, because he didn't get it.
Yeah,
I could imagine as a kid growing up, if my father never ever saw me play the sport I loved, or whatever level you're playing at.
Yep.
But you never went and watched him until he was in his 20s. So again, you can't get that back. You can't reverse that decision.
And it's really easy. Like, I hear people all the time to justify, I'm doing it
for them.
Yeah, and that's noble and fucking all that other sort of jazz. But it's like, at the end of the day, fucking stop spending as much, if it's, you know what I mean? Like,
same story. If your house had one less bedroom and your car was 5 years older and the hotel room cost half the price, do you reckon little Johnny's going to give a shit about it?
He does not give a fuck.
No idea what's going on. Yeah. So he'd prefer that than prefer the opposite for half the time, and Daddy's never home or Mummy's never home.
This is what, like, I you know, a lot of people I know work in the mines and stuff, and I could never do that, because it's just not worth, to me, and the way I see things, like, their pay packets are meant to be awesome, but it's like, well, you're sacrificing half a year away, and then not only you're sacrificing that time, generally you know, whether you've got a family or whatever, that's disjointed, and you're trying to get that back up and going. So it's not like you just taken away and put straight back in. The situation's great. It's like, no.
And then you start papering up the cracks with money, right? Because you've got the cash, so let's go on a big holiday and buy the kids this and do that. Yeah. But the kids are not.
And it's easy to get stuck in that trap, because I fucking hear it all the time. I'm just going to do it for 2 years and save this much money. Yeah. They're not. No. I reckon, I don't know what a percentage, but I would say 1 in 10 actually do that.
I was telling my business partner the other day, he's a banker by trade, and he was saying, I got a mate who's looking to go overseas, and I was talking to him about it, and he said, the problem is the banker goes overseas, they earn great money, but then their lifestyle adjusts to that. And there's another podcast with Rogan, I think he's an author, Michael Gladwell, I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
He was earning...
Malcolm Gladwell,
sorry, with Moneyball and all those books, but he was earning a mint on Wall Street. I think he had the potential to earn $1 million next year. And this was in the 90s, I think, And he quit. And his dad's like, what are you doing? You just do another year and pick up the mill. And he's like, I don't want to get accustomed to the money. Yeah. So he went and became an author. I think he said he might earn 40 grand in the first year, or whatever it was. But, like, super smart, super ahead of his time to realise potentially what could occur if he took the cheese and kept going.
It's funny, like even from that, so with my business model is like one of the things I could have easily loaded at front end, but I'm obviously in a position now where I'm looking to make the Man That Can project less about me and more about like a team of people. And so in order to do that, I've lowered some costs in certain areas, but I know long term it'll be a more sustainable and better model. It'll requires me to do more work rather than just be lazy up the front end where on paper the numbers are significantly different, but over the next 3 to 5 years it pays off much greater. And so, you know, going back to sort of that, like it's really interesting how you we get caught in by what's all shining right in front of your face. Like even with shortcuts anywhere, well, not necessarily shortcuts, but
it's even fitness, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you know, the saying out there, I think it was Dalai Lama or whatever. You give up your health to make money, and then you give up money to fix your health or whatever.
Yeah.
And I've done that, and so I'm flipping it the other way now. But the concept we have in our mind, it's just if I do 8 weeks, I'm going to be sweet.
Yeah.
No, like it's life. It's a long term.
Yeah. What's
thing,
the habit or the standard I need to hold myself to?
You can do anything for 6 or 8 weeks if you really wanted to. You can drink water for cut out beers for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But if you don't understand how better you feel, then you just go back to the beers.
Exactly. Last one before we wrap it up. But what's your I don't think I asked you this last time. What's your definition of being a man?
I was thinking about this. I knew it was going to come up.
Yes.
I meant to write shit down, but I couldn't write anything down.
Gotcha.
I mean, there's so many variations, right?
Yeah.
But, to me, the new age man is being open and vulnerable to ideas and change and different roles in life.
Yeah.
You know, back to the provider and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, shit. It's hard to put into words, but yeah, my version of a new age type guy is to be part of everything. You know, not like having roles within family, and you can be the male and the female, but if there's one role and everyone joins in on that role.
I like it. Collaborative.
Don't know how to
That's
put it
fucking
in.
Well, I think it is, right? Because you know, when you're playing, I guess, you know, all the roles, it allows you to be vulnerable in different ways, right? It brings out that authentic self, and people are going to get to see you in a different light that they may never see.
Yeah, and having kids does that big time, and scares the bejesus out of you, but it's the best thing I've ever done. That's my legacy, is having children, not business or wealth or money. So
fucking oath. And where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
Instagram, that's all. If you're more than welcome to. It's nothing special on there, but I'm open to
video. I'm loving the fucking stories. The stories are quality.
I'm open to talking, and you know, and especially about children and fathers and all that sort of stuff, because maybe that's for next time. But there's
I reckon, because that was what we were going to divert to. But stay tuned. Actually, if you guys have questions or even experiences or perspectives on it around, you know, being a dad, I know you were saying like there's mums groups when you become a mum.
Yeah, I had to chat to my wife. You know, they have a mother's group when the wife has a baby, and this is not to degrade what they've gone through, because it's massive.
Yeah.
But I said to her, there's no support network for fathers. So
it's adjustment, right? It's change. You need.
I should be going somewhere every week for 6 weeks to say, Jesus, man, this thing cries, or like, how are you dealing with it? You know what I mean? Or whatever. Or the wife, you know, she's tired. What can I do to help? But there's none of that. It's all one-way traffic. So
yeah, it's an interesting. It's something I've never really thought about, but I think there's probably a lot of dads who would benefit from that. But we'll hit that one up in the next 2 weeks.
Cool. Sounds good.
Thanks for coming on, brother.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Man That Can Project podcast. My name is Lockie Stewart, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. If you did, please take a moment to rate and review the Man That Can Project on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our newest episodes. We'll see you again next time.